My father-in-law accidentally destroyed my late mother's wedding dress that I was planning to wear at my wedding in 2 weeks, and now my fiancé is saying I'm overreacting because it's just a dress and his father didn't mean to. I'm seriously considering calling off the wedding. I, 27F, am supposed to get married in 2 weeks to my fiancé Mike, 29M. We've been together for 4 years, engaged for one. Up until 3 days ago, I was excited and happy. Now I'm questioning everything. I need to give you some background so you understand why this situation is so devastating to me. My mother passed away when I was 19. She had ovarian cancer and fought it for 2 years before she died. Watching her decline was the hardest thing I've ever been through. She was my best friend, my biggest supporter, and losing her shattered me in ways I'm still healing from 8 years later. Before she died, my mom and I had a conversation about my future wedding. She knew she wouldn't be there, and it broke both our hearts. She told me she wanted me to wear her wedding dress when I got married. She said it would be like having a piece of her there with me on my special day. Her wedding dress is beautiful. It's from 1991, but it's a classic style. Ivory satin, lace sleeves, a chapel train. It's been carefully preserved in a special storage box for over 30 years. My dad kept it safe for me all these years. When Mike proposed, one of the first things I told him was that I wanted to wear my mom's dress. He said he thought that was beautiful and touching. We looked at the dress together, and he agreed it would be perfect with maybe some minor alterations. I took the dress to a seamstress who specializes in vintage gowns. She said it was in excellent condition and would only need minor adjustments to fit me properly. I had my first fitting 3 weeks ago, and I cried when I saw myself in the mirror. I felt so connected to my mom. It was exactly what I wanted. The dress was supposed to stay at the seamstress's shop until the wedding, but she called me 2 weeks ago saying she had a family emergency and needed to close the shop for a few weeks. She asked if I could pick up the dress and bring it back the week before the wedding for final adjustments. I picked up the dress and brought it to Mike's and my apartment. We've been living together for 2 years in a small 2-bedroom place. I hung the dress in our spare room closet, still in its protective garment bag, away from everything. Now I need to tell you about Mike's father, Robert. Robert is a lot. He's controlling, opinionated, and has very traditional views about basically everything. He's been married to Mike's mom, Linda, for 35 years, and from what I can tell, she just goes along with whatever he says to keep the peace. Robert has never particularly liked me. I'm not sure why. Maybe because I'm more independent than he thinks a woman should be, or because I have opinions and aren't afraid to express them. I work as a civil engineer, and he's made several comments about how women shouldn't be in men's fields. I've mostly ignored him for Mike's sake. Mike is aware his father can be difficult, but he's also very much in the mindset of that's just how he is and doesn't really stand up to him. This has been a source of tension between us, but I've tried to be understanding because I know family dynamics are complicated. Robert has been very involved in the wedding planning, more involved than I wanted, honestly. He's paying for a significant portion of the wedding, which I now realize was a mistake because he thinks that gives him veto power over decisions. He's complained about the venue, too modern, the menu, too exotic. We're having a mix of American and Indian food since I'm Indian American, the music, too loud, and numerous other details. Every time, Mike tells me to just compromise to keep his dad happy. But the biggest issue has been my dress. When Robert found out I was wearing my mother's wedding dress, he was not happy. He said it was bad luck to wear a dress from a failed marriage. My parents were married for 23 years until my mom died. How has that failed? He said I should wear a new dress, that it was weird to wear a dead person's clothes, that it would make the wedding gloomy. I told him, very firmly, that I was wearing my mother's dress, and that wasn't up for discussion. Mike backed me up on this. It was one of the few times he stood up to his father. Robert dropped it, or so I thought. 3 days ago, Mike and I were both at work. Robert has a key to our apartment because he insisted on having one for emergencies, and Mike gave him one without really consulting me about it. I wasn't thrilled, but didn't push back because I didn't think it would be an issue. Around noon, I got a call from Robert. He said he'd stopped by our apartment to drop off some items for the wedding, decorations his wife had bought, and he needed to tell me something. He said there had been an accident with my dress. My heart stopped. I asked what kind of accident. He said he'd gone into the spare room to look for something, why, I don't know, and he didn't explain, and he'd accidentally knocked over a bottle of red wine that had been on the shelf near the closet. The wine had spilled all over the garment bag and leaked through onto the dress. I literally felt like I couldn't breathe. I asked him if he was joking. He said no, he was very sorry, it was a complete accident. I left work immediately. Mike met me at the apartment. I'd called him in hysterics. When I got there, Robert was still at the apartment. And there was my dress, on the bed, covered in red wine stains. I fell apart. I was sobbing, hyperventilating, couldn't even form words. The dress was ruined. Completely ruined. Red wine all over the bodice, the skirt, even some on the train. The ivory satin was stained dark red in huge splotches. Mike was shocked. He kept saying, "Dad, what happened?" Robert repeated his story about accidentally knocking over the wine bottle. But here's the thing, I don't keep wine in the spare room. We have a small wine rack in the kitchen. There's no reason there would have been a bottle of wine anywhere near my dress. I asked Robert why there was wine in the spare room. He got defensive and said he'd brought a bottle with him to give us as a gift and had set it down in the spare room when he was looking around. This didn't make sense. Why would you bring a bottle of wine as a gift, take it into the spare room, open it because it had to be open to spill, and set it near a closet? Asked if the bottle had been open. He said yes, he'd opened it to check the vintage or something. His excuse kept changing. Mike kept saying it was an accident, that his dad felt terrible, that we could get the dress cleaned or I could get a new dress. I was too devastated to even argue. I just held my mom's dress and cried. Robert left pretty quickly after that, saying again how sorry he was. Once he was gone, I tried to calm down and think rationally. I called the seamstress to ask if the dress could be saved. She said red wine stains on ivory satin are nearly impossible to remove completely, especially if they've set for any length of time. She said I could try a professional restoration service, but it would cost thousands of dollars and there was no guarantee they could save it. I looked up restoration services. The ones that specialize in vintage wedding gowns charge $2,000 to $5,000 for major restoration, and they said even then, wine stains are some of the hardest to remove. They'd need at least 3 to 4 weeks, which would be after my wedding. So basically, my mother's wedding dress, the one thing I wanted more than anything for my wedding, is destroyed. And I can't wear it. I spent that entire evening crying. Mike tried to comfort me, but he kept saying things like, "At least we can get you a new dress, and it was an accident, and my dad feels awful about it." I said, "Mike, this wasn't just any dress. This was my mother's dress. This was my connection to her. This was the one thing I wanted for our wedding." He said he understood, but these things happen and we had to move forward. The next day, I was calmer, but still devastated. I started thinking more clearly about what happened. And the more I thought about it, the more it didn't add up. Why was Robert in our spare room at all? He said he was dropping off decorations. Those would go in the living room or kitchen, not the spare room. Why did he bring an open bottle of wine into the spare room? How did the bottle end up positioned so perfectly to spill directly onto the garment bag in the closet? I voiced these questions to Mike. He said I was looking for conspiracy, where there was just an accident. He said his father had no reason to deliberately ruin my dress. I said, "Your father has made it very clear he doesn't want me wearing this dress. He thinks it's bad luck. He's been vocal about it." Mike said his dad wouldn't do something that malicious. But I'm not so sure. Asked Mike to talk to his father and get a clearer explanation of exactly what happened. Mike said he would, but he was clearly uncomfortable with me implying his father did this on purpose. Mike talked to Robert that evening. According to Mike, Robert's story is, he came to drop off decorations, he brought a bottle of wine as a gift, he wanted to put it somewhere safe, so he went into the spare room, he opened the bottle to check if it was still good. This explanation makes no sense to me. He set it on the shelf, and when he turned around, he knocked it with his elbow and it spilled. I asked Mike if he believed this story. He said he didn't know why his father would lie. I said, "Because he didn't want me wearing that dress, and now I can't." Mike got frustrated with me. He said I was grieving and looking for someone to blame, but accidents happen, and I needed to accept that and move on. I was furious. I said, "This isn't just about accepting an accident. This is about your father potentially destroying something irreplaceable that meant everything to me, and you won't even consider that it might not have been an accident." He said I was being paranoid and unfair to his father. We've been fighting on and off for 3 days now. Mike thinks I'm overreacting. He says it's just a dress and we can find another one. But it's not just a dress. It was my mother's dress. It was my connection to her on the most important day of my life. And now it's gone. I told Mike I wanted his father to pay for the restoration attempt, since he's the one who destroyed it. Mike said his father already offered to pay for a new dress instead, which he thinks is generous. I don't want a new dress. I want my mother's dress. And the fact that Mike doesn't understand why this is different is breaking my heart. I've been looking at new dresses online, and I just start crying every time. I don't want a new dress. I don't want to walk down the aisle in something I bought 2 weeks before my wedding. I want my mom's dress. My dad is devastated too. When I told him what happened, he was silent for a long time, and then he said, "Your mother would have been heartbroken." He offered to pay for restoration, but even if we could afford it, there's no time before the wedding. Mike's mom called me yesterday. She said she heard what happened and she was so sorry. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. Robert can be stubborn about things. I'm sure he didn't mean for it to go this far. I asked her what she meant by that. She backtracked and said she just meant that Robert has strong opinions, but he wouldn't intentionally hurt me. But the way she said it didn't mean for it to go this far, made it sound like she thinks he did this on purpose. I asked Mike about his mom's comment. He said I was reading too much into it, that his mom talks in vague ways sometimes. Here's where I am now. I'm supposed to get married in less than 2 weeks. My dress is destroyed. My fiancé thinks I'm overreacting and won't even consider that his father might have done this deliberately. His father has offered no real accountability. Just an offer to buy me a new dress like that somehow makes up for destroying an irreplaceable family heirloom. And I'm realizing that this is a preview of my married life. Every time there's a conflict with Mike's family, he's going to tell me I'm overreacting. He's going to take their side. He's going to minimize my feelings. I told Mike last night that I'm considering postponing the wedding. He was shocked. He said I'm letting my grief over the dress cloud my judgment about our entire relationship. I said, "This isn't about the dress. This is about you not supporting me. This is about your father possibly destroying something precious to me, and you refusing to even consider that possibility. This is about you telling me I'm overreacting when something devastating has happened." He said I'm being dramatic and irrational. That's when I said I might need to call off the wedding entirely, not just postpone it. He looked at me like I was crazy. He said, "You're going to throw away 4 years together over a dress?" I said, "I'm considering not marrying someone who dismisses my feelings, doesn't stand up for me, and can't see how devastating this situation is." We haven't really spoken since then. He's been sleeping on the couch. I called my best friend and told her everything. She said she's been worried about Mike's passivity with his family for a while, and this seems like a breaking point. She said if I want to call off the wedding, she'll support me. My dad said he'll support whatever decision I make, but he gently pointed out that if I'm having these doubts now, they're not going to go away after the wedding. I've been reading forums about wedding dress disasters and family boundary issues, trying to get perspective. Some people are saying I'm overreacting, that it really might have been an accident, and I shouldn't blow up my relationship over it. Others are saying the red flags with Mike's family are too big to ignore. I genuinely don't know what to do. Part of me thinks I'm being irrational, that grief is making me see malice where there's just an unfortunate accident. Part of me thinks my gut is telling me something important. The wedding is in 12 days. Guests have made travel plans. We've paid deposits. My dress is destroyed, and I have nothing to wear. My fiancé thinks I'm being crazy. His father may or may not have deliberately destroyed my most precious possession. And I'm sitting here wondering if I should go through with marrying into this family. Reddit, am I overreacting? Is this grief talking, or is this a legitimate reason to call off a wedding? Update: 24 hours later. I wasn't planning to update so soon, but something happened that has made my decision very clear. After I posted yesterday, I couldn't stop thinking about Mike's mom's comment. Didn't mean for it to go this far.
It was eating at me.
I decided to call her directly and ask her what she meant. She was hesitant at first, but I pressed her. I said, "Linda, I need to know the truth. Do you think Robert destroyed my dress on purpose?" There was a long silence. Then she said, "I think Robert feels very strongly about traditions and superstitions. He really believed your dress would bring bad luck to the marriage." I asked her directly, "Did he destroy it on purpose?" Another long silence. Then, "I don't know for certain. But Robert mentioned a few days before it happened that someone needed to do something about that dress. I didn't think he'd actually." I felt sick. Asked her why she didn't warn me. She said she didn't take him seriously. She thought he was just venting. She never imagined he'd actually do something. I asked if she'd tell Mike this. She said she couldn't, that it would destroy their family, that I had no proof anyway, and that maybe it really was an accident. I told her she needed to tell Mike the truth. She refused. She said it would cause too many problems and that I should just let it go and move forward. I was furious. I said, "Your husband destroyed my mother's wedding dress, and you want me to just let it go?" She started crying and saying she was sorry, but family was complicated, and she couldn't go against Robert. I hung up on her. I immediately called Mike and told him about the conversation. I thought surely this would make him see the truth.
He didn't believe me.
He said his mother was probably confused, that she misunderstood what his father said, that I was twisting her words. I said, "Mike, your mother basically confirmed your father did this on purpose." He said his mother didn't confirm anything, that someone needed to do something about that dress could mean anything, like maybe his dad was going to offer to pay for alterations or something. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. His mental gymnastics to defend his father were insane. I said, "So you're choosing to believe your father over me?" Again. He said he wasn't choosing anyone, that I was being unreasonable, and that I was trying to cause drama before the wedding. That's when I made my decision. I told Mike the wedding was off. Not postponed.
Off.
He thought I was bluffing. He said I was upset and not thinking clearly. I said I'd never been more clear about anything. I couldn't marry someone who wouldn't stand up for me, who dismissed my feelings, and who would let his family treat me this way. He started to panic. He said we could work this out, go to counseling, figure it out. He said I was throwing away our relationship over one incident. I said, "This isn't one incident. This is a pattern. And this incident showed me exactly what my future would look like married to you." He asked what he was supposed to tell everyone, what we were supposed to do about the venue, the deposits, all the plans. I said we'd figure out the logistics, but the wedding was not happening. He got angry then. He said I was being selfish and dramatic, that I was ruining everything over a dress and paranoid suspicions about his father. I told him to leave. This is my apartment. I had it before we moved in together. My name is the only one on the lease. I told him to pack his things and go stay with his parents. He said he wasn't going anywhere, that this was his home too. I said if he didn't leave, I would. So I packed a bag and went to my dad's house. I've been here since last night. Mike has been calling and texting nonstop. At first, it was apologies and begging me to reconsider. Then it turned to anger, saying I was making a huge mistake. Now it's back to apologies. I've muted his notifications. I called the venue this morning. Luckily, our contract had a cancellation clause. We'll lose our deposit, about $3,000, but we won't be charged for the full amount. I called the caterer, the DJ, the florist, everyone I could think of. Most deposits are non-refundable, but I don't care. I'd rather lose money than marry someone who doesn't respect me. I sent an email to all our guests explaining that the wedding was canceled due to irreconcilable differences and that we apologize for any inconvenience. I kept it brief and didn't go into details. My phone has been blowing up with calls and texts from people asking what happened. I've been ignoring most of them. Mike's parents called. Robert left a voicemail saying he was sorry about the dress and he'd be happy to pay for restoration if I'd reconsider the wedding. Too little,
Too late.
And notice he's still not admitting he did it on purpose. My friends and family have been supportive. My dad said he's proud of me for standing up for myself. My best friend came over last night with wine and ice cream, and we had a good cry together. Am I sad?
Yes. 4 years is a long time.
I thought I was going to marry this man. I thought we'd build a life together. But I'm also relieved. I feel like I dodged a bullet. If I'd married him, I'd have spent my life being dismissed, having my feelings minimized, watching him prioritize his father's comfort over my well-being. The dress is still destroyed. That pain is still very real. I'll never wear my mother's dress at my wedding now. That breaks my heart. But at least I won't be walking down the aisle toward a man who doesn't truly see me or stand up for me. I'm going to take the dress to a restoration specialist anyway, even though there's no rush now. Maybe they can save it. Maybe someday, if I get married again, I can wear it. Or maybe I'll just have it restored to keep as a memory of my mom. For now, I'm focusing on canceling everything, figuring out the logistics of getting Mike completely out of my apartment, and starting to heal. Thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. The people who told me to trust my gut and not ignore these red flags. You were right. Final update. 1 week later. A lot has happened in the past week, and I wanted to give one final update to close this chapter. First, the dress. I took it to a restoration specialist who's considered one of the best in the country. She said it's going to be very difficult, but she thinks she can remove most of the staining. It'll cost $4,500 and take about 3 months, but there's a good chance the dress can be saved. I broke down crying in her shop. She gave me a hug and said she'd do everything she could. My dad insisted on paying for it, saying it's what my mom would have wanted. Second, Mike. He finally moved out of my apartment. It took some pressure. I told him if he didn't leave voluntarily, I'd start eviction proceedings, but he's gone. He took his things while I was at work, which I'm grateful for because I didn't want another confrontation. He left me a letter. It was long and rambling, but the gist was that he's sorry. He understands why I'm upset, but he thinks I'm making a mistake. He said his father really didn't mean to destroy the dress, and that I'm letting paranoia ruin our relationship. Even in his apology, he's still defending his father. That told me everything I needed to know. Third, and this is the big one, I found out the truth about what happened. Mike's brother, James, reached out to me. James and I have always gotten along well, and he's the only one in Mike's family who isn't under Robert's thumb. James told me that he overheard a conversation between Robert and Linda a few days before my dress was destroyed. Robert was ranting about the dress, saying it was going to curse the marriage, that I was being disrespectful to their family by insisting on wearing it, and that if no one else was going to do anything about it, he would. Linda apparently told him to let it go, but Robert said, "That dress isn't making it to the wedding."
I'll make sure of that.
James didn't think much of it at the time. He thought his dad was just venting. But after he heard what happened, he put 2 and 2 together. James offered to tell Mike what he'd overheard, to back me up. I told him I appreciated it, but at this point, it didn't matter. Even if Mike believed his father did it on purpose, the fact that he didn't stand up for me was the real issue. But James told Mike anyway. He called him and explained exactly what he'd heard. Mike's response? He said James must have misunderstood, that Dad couldn't have meant that there was no proof. Even with his own brother confirming it, Mike chose to believe his father over everyone else. James apologized to me. He said he was ashamed of his family and that I dodged a bullet by not marrying into it. Fourth, Robert sent me a check for $5,000 with a note saying it was for dress-related expenses, and he hoped there were no hard feelings. I tore up the check. I don't want his money. I want him to admit what he did and apologize sincerely, which he'll never do. Fifth, I found out from a mutual friend that Mike and his family are telling people that I called off the wedding because of cold feet and commitment issues. They're not telling anyone about the dress. They're making me look like the unstable one who backed out at the last minute for no reason. Honestly, I don't even care. The people who matter know the truth. Sixth and finally, I'm doing okay. Better than okay, actually. Once the initial shock wore off, I realized how unhappy I'd been in that relationship. I'd been constantly accommodating, constantly bending to make Mike and his family comfortable, constantly having my feelings dismissed. I'm sad about the relationship ending, but I'm not sad about not marrying him. Does that make sense? I took my mom's dress to my dad's house. It's in his closet now, waiting to be restored. We sat together looking at photos of my mom wearing it on her wedding day. My dad told me stories about their wedding that I'd never heard before. It was painful but also healing. My dad said something that stuck with me. Your mom would have been devastated about the dress, but she would have been more devastated if you'd married someone who didn't protect you. She would have been proud of you for walking away. So that's where I am. The wedding is canceled. The relationship is over. I'm $10,000 per between lost deposits and restoration costs. My mother's dress might be saved, or it might not. But I'm free. I'm not marrying someone who doesn't respect me. I'm not joining a family that thinks they can treat me however they want. I'm not spending my life being gaslit and dismissed. And honestly, that's worth more than any wedding. To anyone reading this who's having doubts before their wedding, trust your gut. If someone shows you who they are before the wedding, believe them. It doesn't get better after you say, I do. It only gets harder to leave. Thank you to everyone who commented and supported me. It helped more than you know during one of the hardest weeks of my life. I'm going to be okay. Better than okay. I'm going to be free.